Good morning, my name is Brad Morse and I'm making this video at the University of Colorado Denver, and this is for the After School Science Project. This is session number 2. I would prepare for about an hour for this activity. You'll need about 25 minutes to get ready and prepared with the stuff that you'll need on hand to do this session. We're going to be working with oblek, which is a very fun mixture of cornstarch and water. And the idea behind this particular session is to start talking about things such as solids and liquids and mixtures. You'll need your Tupperware / Rubbermaid that's clear. You'll also need some cornstarch right here. You'll want some water. I'm using a vase because that's what was handy. You'll need some measuring cups. I have measuring utensils from teaspoons all the way up to cup, and that you'll use whatever you think you need for the number of youth in the session. Toothpicks, cups, food coloring. Now, this substance is based on the beloved Dr. Seuss story called Bartholomew and the Oblek. So this story can be used as a primer or something that you do at the very beginning of this session. It's a fun book. The story is really about a king that gets tired of the rain and the mud and the snow and all the natural things in the environment. So he asks that a new kind of storm be created in his kingdom, and what they create is the oblek. And as you see in the book, that doesn't work out so well for him, but it's a lot of fun for us here. So again, it'll take about 15 minutes, 25 minutes tops to get ready before the session. And it's a good idea to prepare this before the youth are in the room, just because it's going to be a huge distraction and they'll be drawn to it. So before we get into the recipe for oblek, let's go over our vocabulary words for today. Our words are compound, liquid, mixture, molecule, solid, solution, and starch. And as a reminder, these are our words that are a part of the literacy connection. So a compound is a substance made by chemically combining atoms of 2 or more separate elements. So we'll have that with the water and the cornstarch. Liquid is a matter in a form with definite volume but no definite shape. So liquid flows where it's allowed to flow, and it'll go into the smallest of spaces if there's room. A mixture is substances which are combined physically but not chemically so that each retains its identity. And that's what we'll have with the oblek here, as you'll see. A molecule is the smallest part of a compound which still retains the compound's chemical properties. A solid is matter with both definite volume and shape. So this book, for example, is a solid because it retains its shape. A solution is a mixture that results when one substance devolves into another. So we'll see that. This is why this particular substance is so interesting, because it is also a solid, it's a liquid, we'll be mixing it, but it dissolves and then it undissolves almost. And we'll have starch, which is our cornstarch here, a complex carbohydrate found in certain foods which can be ground into a white, odorless, tasteless powder. For example, wheat, rice, potatoes, and corn are all examples of starchy foods. As you go through this session, there's going to be an emphasis on the scientific method and making scientific observations. We're going to be starting with using our senses and in different ways. So we'll start with our eyes. Ask the youth to describe what they see in the oblek. And then we'll advance to using our hands, and we'll smell, and we'll really get sort of intimate with the substance and feel it. The recipe for oblek is 2 to 1. You'll use 2 parts starch, 1 part water. So if you use 2 cups of starch for a big mixture of Oblek like I have here, you would use 2 cups of the starch and then 1 cup of water. We're going to make a smaller amount today, and what you can do rather than making it in large basins is you can use a cup and just do a little bit for each student, and they can play with it. It gets hard in the bottom, and so they'll rip or tear the cup, and then they can really put it in their hands and start to make scientific observations with more than just their eyes, but they can use their hands, they can smell it. It's odorless, but it's still interesting to smell just to see that it's odorless. I wouldn't recommend tasting it, but they can play with it and allow it to make shapes and retain its shape and then melt. The Oblek in your hand will go through your fingers, and then it becomes hard, so it's a lot of fun. Right now I can barely scratch it off the bottom, and then it's almost like this goopy Play-Doh. And the ball in my hand is really, really hard, but it's also melting as I squeeze it. These are the kind of observations that you want to make with the youth. They can grip it as hard as they can, and they'll be squeezing all the water out of it, and they'll be left with more starch than water. So those are the kind of questions you want to be asking the youth during the session. What do you see? What are you observing? How does it feel in your hand? What happens with different kind of, you can put it into a bottle and see what kind of shape it takes, or see how it melts or how it hardens. And it is a dirty session. You'll want to put newspapers or something along your tables for easy cleanup. But it's just a lot of fun to ask the youth to start describing, using their words to tell you what they're seeing and experiencing with it in their hand. So it's always good to have water on hand too, because it's a very messy substance, and it's just really strange how it dries on your hand, and it looks like it's wet, but it's dry. So you'll want paper towels and water all over your classroom for your kids. So let's get back to actually making the substance. We're going to talk about the recipe for Oblek right now, and it's 2 parts to 1 part. The 2 parts will be starch, and the 1 part will be water. So choose one of your measuring cups. In this example, I'm using the 1/4 cup for an individual amount of Oblek for youth in the after-school science program. So as I said, it's 2 parts to 1, so I have to fill up my 1/4 cup twice. Like so. This is my second. And it's not, science is about precision. This isn't necessarily about being exact. Get close to a 1/4 cup and go ahead and put it in there. So that was 2 parts of the starch, and now I just need 1 part of water. So I'm going to fill up the cup once. You can also have some more fun with the Oblek after you've put your mixture together by adding color. So you can use green as they do in the Dr. Seuss story, or you can combine colors. For example, red and yellow will make orange. So you can have the kids play around with that and talk about primary colors and mixing them. So your finger or a popsicle stick is a good way to start mixing the starch in the water. And that's your Oblek. So again, one of the fun things about this particular session is making observations, which is a big part of science. In review, this session is really about talking about how to use your senses and your words to start to understand the substances that we see every day. The Bartholomew book gives context in a fun way to introduce the Oblek mixture to the kids. And I would suggest having a pen and paper for each of the youth so that they could write down what they see and how they feel about it. And that will help them start to learn about the scientific process in making observations and recording what they experience. So again, my name is Brad Morse, and we're signing off here for After School Science. Thank you and have fun.